What up YouTube? Another day, another dagger. Or tier list. But when you think about it, they're really the same thing. Or something. That doesn't matter. Today we have yet another tier list ranking all of Vermintide's traits. This time, item traits, not properties. Which of course is a little bit different and hopefully easier. At least I think it's gonna be easier.
Are you stupid or something?
But I guess only time will tell.
Stop it. Get some help.
Let's get into it. So here we have it, yet another work of art. I mean, look at these icons. They are magnificently made. It actually took me several hours yesterday, because like, if you see all these small icons, right? At first, I just downloaded all of these icons, right, for the different traits, and I just used those, and then I realized when I was looking at them that like, I had no idea which of them were which. It's like, I mean, some of them I did, like 𝒮𝔴𝔞𝔤𝔤𝔢𝔯𝒮𝔮𝔤𝔤𝔢 for example, right? But like, when I was looking at the difference between Healer's Touch and Hand of 𝒮𝔴𝔞𝔤𝔢𝔯𝒮𝔮𝔲𝔞𝔄, I was like, I don't know which one is which. By that icon, I don't use any of them. So, how was I supposed to know? And if I don't know, then I have a feeling that most of you guys wouldn't know either, at least with some combination of these, right? You'd be like, which one is which again? So I took the time to make all of these so you could at the very least read which one is which. And the tier list is pretty much same format as yesterday. Already, one thing stands out, right? 𝒮𝔴𝔞𝔤𝔤𝔢𝔯𝒮𝔮𝔲𝔞𝔄. S tier. Has to be S tier. I mean, come on. It is by far the single most used trait in Vermintide. I'm fairly certain of that. I don't think that there's even a ranged trait that can compete. 𝒮𝔴𝔞𝔤𝔤𝔢𝔯𝒮𝔮𝔬𝒏 is by far the most popular trait, and I also think it's up there as the best. I think the only melee one that could compete would be Opportunist. And the reason Opportunist could compete is simply because of what it does, right? But what it does is, unlike 𝒮𝔴𝔞𝔤𝔤𝔢𝔯𝒮𝔮𝔬𝒏, what Opportunist does is only good in very specific situations. With shielded weapons, for example, hitting stagger breakpoints, being that frontliner, even as an elf, for example, where you can hit stagger breakpoints on berserkers. And in those situations, it's absolutely amazing, right? But at the same time, I feel like I have to at least put it down A, maybe even B, just because of the very specific circumstances for Opportunists to be useful. Does that make sense? Whereas I feel like 𝒮𝔴𝔞𝔤𝔤𝔢𝔯𝒮𝔮𝔬𝒏 can really be used in all walks of the game, like whether you're playing Recruit or Onslaught, Kata, 3, Death Wish, doesn't matter. There is a place for 𝒮𝔴𝔞𝔤𝔤𝔢𝔯𝒮𝔮𝔬𝒏 in either, right? And all across. Where I feel like Opportunist, I would never use Opportunist on lower than Legend, if you possibly even low, I would say lower than Kata. I don't see myself using it on Legend either. You can use it on Legend, but personally I think at a minimum I would have to be playing Cataclysm for Opportunist to ever like be a part of my build, because otherwise I'd just do the lazy thing and use 𝒮𝔴𝔞𝔤𝔤𝔢𝔯𝒮𝔮𝔬𝒏 instead, just because I knew I could get away with it. But for now we're gonna place it A tier. We're gonna place it A tier for now. Let's see, what else have we got? Then we got Thermal Equalizer. Now, Thermal Equalizer is pretty good. I don't think it's 𝒮𝔴𝔞𝔤𝔤𝔢𝔯𝒮𝔮𝔬𝒏 good, but it's definitely, it's at minimum a B tier, I would say. It's probably the most used on Sienna staffs, I would say, alongside Heatsink, but I feel like Heatsink is a potentially higher value, but slightly more niche specific version of Thermal Equalizer, because it's dependent on critical hits. So I would say overall, I think Thermal Equalizer has to be a tier above Heatsink, in my opinion. Because Heatsink is mostly used for the Pyromancer, because you can get that critical hit chance and sort of build that up. Whereas Thermal Equalizer just works for all three of them. It also is great for Unchained, because it also reduces the amount of heat you generate when taking damage. Let's see, what else have we got? What else can we place? Well, we can just go right ahead and say that Healer's Touch is dog shit, and Hand of 𝒮𝔮𝔬𝔢𝔯𝒮𝔮𝔬𝒏 is also dog shit. They're dog shit. I'm sorry, but they just are. Like, I don't think I've ever intentionally used either. And just so I don't get it wrong here, we got Healer's Touch, and Healer's Touch is the one that gives you 25% chance not to consume a healing item on use. Absolute trash. And then you've got the Hand of 𝒮𝔮𝔬𝔢𝔮. And then you have Hand of 𝒮𝔮𝔬𝔢𝔮. Whenever you heal a friendly player with a medkit, you also get 50% health of your full health. So the problem with these two is, first of all, they're totally situational based, right? 25%, 1 out of 4. It's for healing. It's really not that much value. And it's the same with Hand of 𝒮𝔮𝔬𝔢𝔮, right? So sure, you heal your friend with your medkit, but that already clears your wounds, right? So we're only talking about the 50% health as the only benefit, which is not amazing. It's just not. I'm fairly certain those two have to be all the way down here. What else have we got? Then we got Inspirational Shot. Inspirational Shot. So guys, here's the thing. Inspirational Shot. In all of my 5,000 hours of Vermintide, there's not been a single time, okay? Not a single time where I have intentionally used Inspire Shot, okay? The only two situations I can think of where it's possible that I've ever had it on a weapon that I was actually using is A, when I've been grinding up in item power and just arbitrarily got an orange item that had it on that I equipped for a single game before salvaging the item and moving on, right? That's one scenario. Or Chaos Wastes, where I may have gotten the property, again, by accident, right? Headshotting enemies restores stamina to your teammates.
Y'all got any more of that? Stamina?
This like why is it in the game? I don't understand. Okay, it is so situational. It's like I don't know of anyone who's ever used it. Like I legitimately don't know of anyone who's been like, I'm gonna get Inspirational Shot. And if they have, it has to have been for the memes, right? It must have been. Like seriously, what is that trait? Like, what the hell? It is so bad. Okay. Now let's see. Can we find another one that is equivalent? Yeah, Heroic Intervention. Right. That is another meme. Okay, Heroic Intervention. I almost think I have to put it above Inspirational Shot. Like, don't get me wrong, it is absolute dog shit. But at least here, this is nah. Forget what I said. So what this essentially does is, let's say your teammate gets hit by an assassin, and you push off the assassin. You both get a 15 health, right? Temporary health, I should add. 15 temporary health, right? Same situation. Don't think I have ever intentionally used this in my 5,000 hours, okay? It is like, it's so bad. Like, why is it in the game? I don't know. Okay, like, please, replace these traits with something else. I really think they should. Especially now that they've already created several, like, really insane and really interesting traits in Chaos Wastes. And sure, they may have to be modified a bit to fit in the normal game, but I see no reason why they couldn't, right? I feel like it would be so much more interesting if some of those traits were added to the core game, so that we had a chance. Even if you have to nerf them, fine. If it's because it's too OP, fine, nerf them, but put them in, because we really need more variety in our traits these days. I feel like Swiftling has just been the default for like ages, right? It's like, come on, give us something new. I feel like we really need that. What else have we got? We got the Barrage. Now, Barrage has to be up there, definitely. It's definitely, I would say, A tier, possibly even S tier. Let me just think. As for ranged things goes, often with ranged weapons, most of the time you're gonna go for either Conservative or Scrounger, right? Because you need a method by which to get ammo back. Unless you are playing a character that has that sort of built into the character. And even sometimes then, you still do it, so that you can just spam, right? So what I'm trying to think of here, because Barrage is probably the most, I'd say Barrage is slightly better than Hunter, I would say, slightly better. So even though Hunter gives you the 25 straight, it requires a critical hit to apply, whereas Barrage just have to hit the same minion, right? Barrage is obviously better for like these AoE type, infinite ammo, like Moonfire Bow, or even Hackbane Shortbow, right? That's where Barrage shines, whereas Hunter is more something you put like on a repeater handgun for the Bounty Hunter, where you got that guaranteed crit. And the great thing about Hunter, like Barrage, it is applied on the actual shot, but because Hunter is a from 0 to 25 straight, you just get that 25% on the actual critical hit itself. So I feel, and of course Barrage is a raw power buff, so it applies to like all enemies, whereas Hunter only applies to that specific armor class that you got the critical hit on. I'm just trying to think. I feel like I use Barrage more than I use Hunter, but again, I'm also an elf player, right? So I'm just trying to check here if I'm a little bit biased. But we're gonna leave them there for now, and we'll revisit later. And then of course we got Conservative Shooter. I feel like Conservative Shooter has to be an S tier. I feel like Scrounger is slightly worse than conservative shooter. I feel like I have to put it a tier lower. Don't get me wrong, and there are many situations where Scrounger is better than conservative shooter, where Scrounger is the only right choice, right? And conservative shooter isn't. But I feel like if I had to try to evaluate this across all classes and across all ranged weapons, right? If I knew I had to play a random class with a random ranged weapon, would I pick conservative shooter or Scrounger? I would pick conservative shooter. Because again, this requires something specific, this one doesn't. Right, so I could always get this to work to some degree, assuming we're not talking, can't even put it on flamethrowers, can you? No, I don't think so. I could almost always get this to work in some capacity where that would not necessarily be the case with Scrounger. So I feel like conservative shooter has to be a bit above Scrounger, right? It's sort of a similar situation to Barrage and Hunter in relation. But yeah, we're gonna put it there for now. Of course, then we have Resourceful Shooter. Resourceful Shooter, I feel like Resourceful Shooter has to be way down there. Maybe not. Maybe I'm a bit too rough to it right now, but 5%. Yeah, it can only trigger once every 4 seconds. It's a similar situation to. It's actually identical to the melee version, Resourceful Combatant. That's also once every 4 seconds. But I would argue that Resourceful Shooter is a lot worse than Resourceful Combatant. I don't think Resourceful Combatant is particularly good, but it's better than Resourceful Shooter. Again, because here we're relying on melee attacks, which we can freely spam and obtain those crits, right? And we're safe while we're melee attacking. Whereas with Resourceful Shooter, we would have to spam both consuming ammo and doing it while we are unable to actually block, which makes it a way more risky, way less effective version of Resourceful Combat, which is also why this is something you pretty much never use. Again, you could, theoretically speaking, use it with 10% cooldown reduction on a bounty hunter so that you could get an instantaneous 95% cooldown reduction on your ulti, but guys, maybe we'll do that meme build one day, but don't do that. Okay, that's not the way to play him, okay? It's not, at least not the viable way to play him. But it's an interesting idea now that I just mentioned it, actually. We should do that meme build video sometime. 95% bounty hunter meme build. Okay, it's on the list, guys. It's on the list. Every YouTuber has a list, okay? Trust me. Every YouTuber has a list. Okay, where do we go from here? Let's see here. What else have we got? Then we got something like Off Balance. Where are we going to place that? I mean, it's fairly... It has to be in the lower end of the spectrum. I'm trying to recall what I've been using it for. I feel like the only build I can think of where I intentionally used Off Balance was like in the old days of the Bounty Hunter. I think that was back before he had the 80% cooldown reduction. And the idea was that, you know, you'd aggro a monster with your ranged weapon, and then you would be blocking so that it got that 20% extra damage buff, and then you would cast shoot your ulti, right? But it's pretty bad. But are these two equally bad? The only time I recall using Resourceful Combatant was in a Shade dual swords build, pretty much. That's the only time I can recall. That's not to say that it's the only time I ever have, but anyways, that's fine. We're gonna leave it there for now. Barkskin has to be an S tier. No questions asked. I think there's no doubt about it. Barkskin is just by far, in my opinion, the best necklace trait. Boon of Shalia, B tier, maybe A tier. Yeah, I think it's a B tier. I think it's fair to say it's a B tier, because I feel like it can be better than Barkskin in certain circumstances, but 9 out of 10 times Barkskin is better than Boon of Shalia in my opinion. But I don't think Boon of Shalia is bad. Like, I use Boon of Shalia from time to time, and it's a good overall trait. So I'm not hating on Boon of Shalia. It's just that Barkskin is really amazing. And then we have Natural Bonds. Now, ooh, this is probably going to be one of the controversial ones, I have a feeling. So in my opinion, right, whew, how do I put this, guys? How do I put this? Okay. In my opinion, Natural Bonds is like here. Okay, yes, I just placed Natural Bonds a tier below Resourceful Combatant and Off Balance. That is how bad I think Natural Bonds is. I'm not saying this is a fact. I'm saying this is my opinion, okay? I want to distinguish between the two. I am saying that in my opinion, Natural Bonds is absolute dog shit.
Ga.
Oi mates. The elf's about to say her first words.
Ga.
Can't heal, I have natural bonds.
The elf's gone! It's quieter already!
Okay, I never use it. Like, the last time I used Natural Bonds was like, it must have been pre-Winds of Magic, on Waystalker to combine with her health regen something, but like we're talking like way before I had any clue of what I was doing, right? And then the only, actually I'm lying now, because I've also been using it for doing handmaiden solo runs, back when I did solo deeds, before I had a YouTube channel, when I did solo deeds, and I would run with a handmaiden in no pickup deeds. That's when I would use natural bonds. Now I also know, I want to talk a little bit about natural bonds, right? Because I think if I'm being fair, because of the situation of no pickup deeds, I'll put it up here, okay? Now I know that there's a bunch of really good players that would be like, PK, what the fuck? Like, there are people, really good players, all respect and fairness to them, that would probably put natural bonds up here, right? They'd be like, oh, it's almost, as, you know, up here-ish, right? At least next to Boon of Shalia. And I respect that. That's fair, you know, whatever floats your boat. But I can't, in good conscience, put it any higher than a D tier on my tier list. I just can't. I think it's absolute shit, okay? So, that was just a little bit of background there. What else? Let's see, parry. What are we gonna do with parry? I think parry is better than a lot of people think it is. It has a lot of potential, but it's also, it feels so niche at the same time. I do have builds that use parry, although they are few and far between. I think if you know what you're doing with it, then it has a high potential. But there are very few situations where I would use it over Swift Slaying or Opportunist, very few. And for that reason, I'm gonna put it at a C tier. And then we got the grenades, the grenade challenge here. Shrapnel. Oh, what do we do here? Shrapnel versus explosive ordnance. And where do we put, how important are they really? I feel like they're not that important. They're sort of lower on the scale of importance, right? Whether you have, you know, what you have on your ranged and melee weapon is way more important than what you have here, or even on your necklace, in fact, has way more impact. But even so, even though I'd say it's the least important trait, the trinket like has the least important of all the traits, I think Grenadier, only time I use Grenadier, which actually I have to mention, this is something I forgot to talk about in my Iron Breaker guide, completely skipped over without mentioning it. Grenadier also affects, and for those of you that don't know, Grenadier gives you a 25% chance to not consume your bomb, but that also applies when using the Trollhammer Torpedo. And someone pointed that out in the comments, and you're completely right. I should have definitely had that as part of the build. It just completely slipped my mind that that was the case, because the only situation I've been doing that previously was in Chaos Wastes. And I don't know, it didn't occur to me. So I think Grenadier actually has a place simply because of that. Because otherwise, if it wasn't for the Trollhammer Torpedo, I would never be using Grenadier. Maybe in certain Ranger Veteran builds, because he also already has an extra 10%, but not really. I think I'm gonna put it there. Explosive Ordnance, I think that's a solid B tier. You see, the thing is, right, I'm not really sure how to rank. I think Shrapnel and Explosive Ordnance are about equally good. It just that it depends, it's situational in my opinion. I feel like it really depends on the type of character you're playing on, whether you yourself have an AoE that you can then follow up with or not. Because I think Explosive Ordnance is definitely best if you don't have a method by which you afterwards can sort of deal that AoE, right? Of course, Shrapnel has the advantage if you, for example, can throw multiple bombs, like if you're on the Engineer, just to give one example, right? That could also apply to the Ranger Veteran, for example. I think Explosive Ordnance, where it has the advantage, is that blast radius is increased. Don't hold me up on this, but I think it's easier for pushing bosses off ledges. But you know what? Because either of them are, I think we're going to place them both in the C tier. But then the Grenadier would have to be E tier, right? But I feel like Grenadier, I can't place Grenadier below Resourceful, because at least there's a situation where I would use this, but I don't really see a situation where I use Off Balance anymore. So maybe it's like that? Maybe? Why is this so hard? I keep thinking this will be so easy, but it's actually a really hard value judgment between... You know, we're gonna leave it at that for now and take a look at the end. So first of all, we got Homebrewer here, right? And Homebrewer is essentially the Grenadier of potions, right? So Homebrewer is like all the way down here in my opinion. It is worse than Grenadier for sure. Pretty much what it does is just gives you a 25% chance to not consume a potion on use. And, you know, again, there's not really a lot of value in that, honestly. It's pretty bad. Again, you could combine it on a Ranger Veteran, but it's pretty bad. It really is. Then we have Decanter, Proxy, and Concoction. Once upon a time, I would have told you guys that Proxy was objectively the best. because it gave you a 200% value, whereas decanter only gave you 150% and concoction 150%. But now we know that's not necessarily the case, because decanter doesn't just increase the amount of time the potion, a concentration pot for example, it's not just the amount of time it's active, it's also the effect that's increased by 50%. But I don't think there's a difference on a speed pot, again, which is weird, right? It's one of those Vermintide things where it's like, wait, what? I was so confused. I remember someone told me, and I was like, oh yeah, that hasn't always been the case, has it? But I know it's the case now, and it doesn't seem to affect like the sort of the extra range of the potion. The extra 50% time affects obviously all potions, but the effect being increased, I believe, is only the concentration pot. I think of the three, I would say concoction is lowest. So concoction, I would say, is the worst of the three overall. Again, there are situations where concoction is the only right choice, right? Let's say, or at least the best choice. Let's say it could be a 𝒮𝔲𝔞𝔤𝔤𝔢𝔯𝒮𝔮𝔲𝔞 with the strength pot talent, right? Concoction is a great thing there because it gives you, allows you to constantly regenerate your ulti. Not saying it's the only way to do it, but that's one situation where you could make a good case for concoction. But I think overall, I would value it the least of these three, and I think objectively, I would have to put proxy above decanter, but this is my tier list. Today I'm gonna do something I very rarely do, guys. I'm gonna go with my heart, okay? Instead of going with my logic and my reasoning, because I pretty much always do that. But today I'm gonna be like, you know what? Screw that shit. We're gonna put decanter there, then we're gonna put proxy there, then we're gonna put concoction there, I think. I don't know. I haven't decided yet. I'm not sure. This is so hard. Oh, what do we do here? Okay. But again, for example, thermal equalizer, right? You can't put that on all ranged weapons, but the ones you can put it on, you would very often be using it. But does that mean that thermal equalizer is like higher up? Always use it on my conflag staff. I almost always use it on my bolt staff. I often use it on my beam staff. I would use it on the coruscation staff. I actually think I have to bump up thermal equalizer. I actually think I do. Hunter Scrounger. I actually feel like this is more fair, because I feel like Hunter and Scrounger, they're both dependent on a critical hit. Right? One is damage, the other is ammo conservation, but they're both dependent on the same thing, and I think I use them about in equal amounts. But then Conservative Shooter is above Barrage. Shouldn't they then also be in the same? I don't feel like any of these are that. Maybe, yeah. You know what? Fuck it. Fuck it. You know what? This is fine. Sometimes when I make a tier list, I want it to be too symmetrical, right? So I'm like, this looks better in my eyes, right? But I actually think this is it. Here it is. The tier list has been completed. This is the final tier list. I don't know if you guys agree with me, but this is what it's gonna look like. So here it is. All of the traits in Vermintide. Anyways, that's all I had for you guys today. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed today's video. Like, comment, and subscribe so we can reach that 10,000 mark. Let me know down in the comments which traits you guys would switch on my list. And as always, I love you guys. Stay awesome.